All right, here we go. So, y'all like high IQ matches? Well, I got a high IQ match for you right here. So, I'm going to start off a Scream, and then I'm going to use the Keldo effect to pitch the Agito to grab the Gravekeeper's Trap from my deck. And then I'm going to activate these effects that Agito is going to mill 5, and I end up hitting a Kelbeck, which will mill in another 5, and then I activate some effects to force him to use his Shuffler right here. And of course he does. And I don't care that my effects don't go off. I still haven't even normal summoned yet. Like, I really don't care. I got all the cards that I'm pretty much needing, and I'm wanting him to play as much as he can to help me. He is actually helping me to do what my strategy is, which my strategy is to get Exchange of Spirit into my graveyard. So he's actually helping me mill deeper into my deck. So I'm going to activate Kikalos. Kikalos will summon Merly and send Kikalos to mill an additional 8. And look, he's still doing stuff. And then I go into Sprite Elf right here. And look, I finally hit my Exchange of Spirit, so I don't have to further make any plays. Um, and of course, what he has right here, basically none of this stuff is going to matter in just a second. Once I flip this card over, while Exchange of Spirit is in your graveyard, your opponent cannot activate the effective cards in the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard unless he has a Lightning Storm or a Harpy's Feather Duster or some kind of back row removal. He is going to have a rough day. So, Exchange of Spirit in my graveyard, it's right there. So, we got Crime, so we got an Omni Negate for the Tearlaments. We got Scream, which will allow me to mill 3 cards from my deck. We also have Sulliek, which is a monster negate on the field. And we also have the Gravekeeper's Trap plus Kaleido Heart, which will spin something back from the field. So if he does manage to get Dweller on the field, I can actually spin it back with this card. And then we also have Sprite Elf as a revive of a level 2 from my graveyard. So then I just resummon out Merly because I will be using that. And then I activate Gravekeeper's Trap. Of course, he's going to flip his cross out designator, calling Havinous because he saw that's what I grabbed. So, of course, he's going to call Havinous. But I'm going to negate that with Crime so that way I can trigger off the actual Havinous that he's trying to prevent me from using. And then I just use Kaleido Heart basically to send this card back from his field back into the deck. And then I activate a couple effects to grab this card and the field spell right here. That'll give me a pop for follow up on the next turn. And then I go into Draco Stapelia. Now I'm just going to hold the Draco Stapelia. My whole point here is just to sit on the Draco Stapelia until he brings out Abyss Dweller. Either that or this will be the one that I use to negate the Abyss Dweller when he finally goes into it. Um, so I got a spin monster, of course, a level 2 revive, and I still got Merly on the field. So let's see what happens. So he puts Scream onto the field, and then he summons out Destrudo. Now, am I a dumb player? Absolutely not. I know what Destrudo does. He is not going into Psychic and Punisher by using 2 of these plus this to make a um, level 11, because basically this plus this will be an 8, then plus this will be a level 11 or a level 7 synchro or whatever. He's not going to be able to do that. So all I do is simply go into Fairy Tale Snow, flip this card face down, and of course he don't want no smoke. He has no plays, can't play, can't use his graveyard because he's locked out of the graveyard. I flipped this monster face down so he can't extend and go into a synchro play because I flipped down the tuner that he had. He had 2 monster negates to play through, and on top of that they would have started milling, which would have given me more fusion summons. He would have been trying to play into me having all my effects without him having any effects. So GG's, my boy. Hold this L. If y'all want to see my deck, I know people always ask me my deck. So this is the deck that I was playing. Now, could this deck be different? Absolutely. Um, I have been experimenting with this deck to see if I like it. Um, There is one thing that I kind of want to try out with this particular deck, and that's running more Exchange of Spirit. I have put 3 in this deck before, and it played amazing. I was winning much more games against Tearlaments, but I was drawing too many Exchange of Spirits. So what I'm thinking of is to just run 2 Exchange of Spirits in this deck, and then potentially just take out Instant Fusion once they ban it. But as of right now, I'm just going to have fun with the Instant Fusion. Once this card is banned, then I'm just going to up the number of Exchange of Spirits. And the reason I want to do that is because it'll make it easier to actually mill Exchange of Spirit. So then that way when I flip Gravekeeper's Trap, I basically win the game. Gravekeeper's Trap is actually much easier to get access to than getting this into the graveyard, because I can get this into my hand, but how do I get it into the graveyard is the real question. And then getting this into my hand and getting Exchange of Spirit into the graveyard is much easier if I'm just milling cards from my deck. So that's why I do that. So yeah, this is a pretty powerful deck. There are other cards that you could run in here. You don't have to run this exactly like this. I also have this card in the deck. You can go into this pretty much whenever you want to, as long as you have King of the Swamp in your deck. Now, you could run multiple copies of King of the Swamp. You don't have to run this card. Of course, they're going to ban this card pretty soon, but I'm about to give y'all some sauce. This card right here can basically do the exact same thing. So if you want to run like 2 copies of Beast King of the Swamp and replace something else in the deck, just for like consistency of milling and then being able to get into other monsters, or even 3 if you want to take out the Maxis. If you're just not a fan of Maxis and you think these are like kind of bricky for you, or if you want to take out the Instant Fusion when they ban it, and then maybe some other cards like Exchange of Spirit plus maybe Gravekeeper's Trap if you just don't like that package, and then just run 3 of this card, you can absolutely do that as well. That'll actually help you with your fusion summons, because these cards basically can count as any by name fusion material. And on all these cards, they all have a 1 by name, and then basically like some, like this one is Relinquish plus an effect monster. So pretty much any tier limit plus one of these fusion monsters will automatically go right into this card. Um, this card right here, basically 1 Shadal plus 1 Dark. So any tier limit plus any one of these cards can go right into window at any time. Um, the Kitkalos, a tier limit monster plus 1 Aqua monster. So this is very easy to go into with any of these cards plus 1 tier limit. Same with Draco Stapelia. Draco Stapelia is a little bit different because it needs a fusion monster, and you can very easily just go into whatever fusion monster you want to, and then just go into Draco Stapelia, and you don't have to worry as much about not being able to make another fusion monster. When you have one of these fusion cards in there, especially since you're going to be going into cards like let's say if you have Kid Kalos on the field, right? But you want to keep Kid Kalos on the field, and you don't want to use Kid Kalos to go into Rule Kalos, or you don't want to use Kid Kalos or Rule Kalos to go into Kaleido Heart. You can make all of those and have all 3 on the field at the same time using these cards, which helps out a lot. And then these cards can also help you get all 3 of those cards out, plus Draco Stapelia, plus Millennium Eyes Restrict. And if they do manage to hit get all out on the field, and you're trying to get them back into the deck, if they hit the graveyard or something, you can still shuffle them back into the deck with this card, Mud Dragon of the Swamp, to basically recycle all of them. So it's like a really good deck if you add some of these cards. Now, you don't have to, but if you wanted to, you could. Let's take a look at my opponent's deck and kind of see what they were playing. So here's their deck. And of course, you see they're running 2 King of the Swamp. They're also running Polymerization. They're running a 51 card deck. At this point, if I'm being honest with you, if you're going to run this deck and run 51 cards, you might as well go ahead and drop 2 Grass Looks Greener in a deck like this, and then that'll help you out tremendously. You'll go so plus just activating grass in a deck like this. So I'm not saying that his deck is better than mine or worse in any way. And of course, there it is right there. Psychic and Punisher. I knew that's what he was going for. And then he also has Shooterizer Dragon. So he could have went into either of these two, whichever one he chose. He also is running Millenniumizer Strict and Winda, which doesn't surprise me because this card is very powerful. Surprisingly, this is the first time I've ever looked in somebody's extra deck and they're actually running Millenniumizer Strict as well. So that's actually kind of shocking. Usually people don't run it, and this card is very powerful in Tearlaments, especially in a mirror match. If you get this card out and their opponents are activating monster effects in the graveyard, you can very quickly overwhelm them because this card can grab their monsters that are activating in the graveyard and basically negate them, so then they can't use it again. So when they're activating, you just grab the monster and then you basically negate it and you've crippled their board. So this card is very powerful. Of course, it's only once per turn, but the more cards you stack up, if you do it on your own turn, if they're playing on your turn, you do it on your own turn, and then on their turn, when they activate a different one, you grab that one too. Now they only have one that they can have a chance of hitting of their fusion monsters. They only have one left, and if that card they don't hit it, or if it gets stopped in some kind of way, maybe shuffled back and they activated it, then you can just grab it again on the next turn, and they won't have any more cards to fusion summon with. So this card is like insane for that. And then also being able to play other stuff too. And this card being able to just continuously boost its attack and just negate cards. This could also negate hand traps. If they activate Max C, this card can negate Max C. It can negate Ash Blossom. It's just a really good card. So I actually like this. Yeah. So if y'all like the video, you know, subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think, and if you think my deck could be better, if you think there's something that I should add or change or whatever the case may be, then you can always let me know. Peace.